two things. Number one, I say, show me your calendar and I'll show you your business. If you show me your calendar, I'll tell you how much money you make. It's that good, right? I can pinpoint it that much in real estate specifically. But what I see is just complacency, lazy, undisciplined, herding cats in a snowstorm, rainstorm is what the real estate space looks like. And that's probably above 80% for sure, but it could be in the 90% range.
Welcome to the Jeff Sutherlin Show. Let's grow today as we learn from decades of real estate and leadership experience.
We want you to know that when you log into this show, you're going to get authentic conversation. We're going to give it to you straight, and it's going to be real.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff Sutherlin Show. And today I have the privilege of interviewing a very special friend of mine, Randy Byrd. And Randy's not just a friend, he's a mentor, he's a confidant. And honestly, Randy was instrumental in my comeback in real estate, helping me feel confident again, to be honest with you. And Randy's track record will just blow your mind. He has one of the biggest organizations in the eXp Realty organization, and he's got around 1,000 agents, and he keeps growing. And he has experience in general contracting. So Chase, you're going to love that because Chase is a civil engineer by trade. So Randy has a real diverse background. I love working with him because what you see is what you get. No pretenses, no fakeness. The real Randy Byrd, otherwise known as Bird Man. So welcome, Randy, to the show.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, Jeff. Good to see you. Actually, I don't see you now. I went to a black screen. Is that normal on this side?
You should be fine. Just keep talking, Randy.
Okay. All right. I know it's a podcast. We're not on TV, which is great because I have a face for radio. So we're good to go.
Cool. Well, Randy, hey, let's just start it off and tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us about, how'd you arrive to where you were, and you got an amazing story. So share a little bit if you don't mind.
Which part would you like? Pick a point.
How about tell us a little bit about your general contracting experience, and then I know you kind of went through the ranks in real estate. I believe you're a team leader and you're a top salesperson. Maybe hit on those vectors.
Yeah, okay, no problem, Jeff. I appreciate it, and I'm glad our paths crossed many years ago, and my life's better for it for many reasons. But my background was, I was in the military, I was in the Coast Guard, loved that, loved serving my country. I know you were a military vet as well. Thank you for your service. And through that, I just really developed some really cool disciplines and habits and pride and the different things. And when I got out, I went to work for hotels. I was actually running embassy suites for their West Coast properties. And then it got taken over by Outrigger Hotels, which was a Hawaii company. I stayed there only because I thought I'd get to go to Hawaii. And that's a different show, different day. But long story short is I found construction. I always loved construction. I was the director of engineering at these hotels. And, at like 25 years old, I had 4 hotels I was running as a regional director, had union engineers and union carpenters that worked for me at 25 years old. And I wasn't union, I was management. So it was kind of a unique role, but I owe that all to what the military instilled into me and the leadership and different things that I took. And so I went into construction, got my license in 92. So I've been licensed 33 years, and I was in Sonoma, Napa County, started really just doing whatever, I was walking door to door, knocking on doors going, hey, I'm Randy. I'm a general contractor. Just got my license. See if you need anything. And literally did that until I was booked up for 6 months at a time. And then expanded that into a kitchen and bath showroom and some other retail spaces to aid the construction. One time we had 35 guys going in the construction, president of the Builders Exchange, did all the things. And my back was going out, though. The story of construction ended because physically, my back was starting to go out, and I started having to chew Vicodin every day just to put my boots on. True story.
Wow.
And I remember talking to my doctor, and she said, hey, how long you been doing Vicodin? I go, I've been doing them. I have to take one a day to put my boots on. And then she goes, how many you take a day? And I go, some days just that. And then some other days on a bad day, I'll take another one at lunch to get me through the day. And she goes, you got to stop that. And I said, well, my back is not good. And she goes, well, you got to decide now. I didn't want to be hunched over at my age. I wanted to have healthy and vibrant. I just turned 60 in August. And so construction ended for me basically in that conversation. And I looked at real estate as another thing to possibly do that would be easier on my body. And I got my license and really had not sold anything. I did it for my own flips and different things I was doing. But, lo and behold, loved it. Literally, as soon as I hit the ground running in real estate, I knew I was made for it. Loved it. And then now it's been a 23-year beautiful journey that I've been in real estate as a broker.
Wow. So you and Chase have a lot in common. So Chase, tell him about your construction background. Can you relate to anything he's saying?
Yeah. My whole family is pretty much in construction. So growing up on job sites, and then I went and got a degree in civil engineering and worked on the management side of big general contractor that did big commercial work. So I wasn't really wearing the tools, but we were out there on the job site, man. So I totally I got a lot of respect for people that, are out there, especially out here in Arizona, man, in this Arizona heat. They're putting in a lot of hard work. And like you said, it is not easy on the body, man. And so I can imagine, after doing it for so long, it starts to take a toll. But that's exciting, man. And so I guess what kind of drew you to real estate? I mean, obviously, you were doing flips and stuff on your own. You were investing on your own, and then you decided to get your license. Is that kind of the path there?
Yes. For me, it was a transition that seemed like they played well together, right? I thought real estate, construction, I could do both. I could build houses. I could sell the houses. I could help people. I'm going to meet people. And really, for me, it was a kind of a dual lane look at it when I first started it. And I did construction for like 3-4 months. But honestly, I hit the ground running in real estate. I knew that I wasn't going to look back. And I certainly didn't want to get into the, stuck in construction and that again. So we moved to a brand new area and I kind of started fresh. We moved from Santa Rosa, Napa area to Redding. And so I moved to Redding and I knew 3 people and I was related to 2, literally. So I just, I really got out there and started networking and built my real estate business. And the first full year in real estate, I did 338,000 GCI. I think we sold 46 houses in my very first full year of real estate. And I just have never looked back. And then that's pretty much when I retired my career. I've dabbled in construction ever since, doing specific projects. And we've done probably 24 flips that we run through the construction company. But for the most part, that's been sunsetted. And, I have a big organization with my EXP Realty now, and it takes a lot of our time now.
So Randy, you sold 46 houses your first year. That is no joke.
So full disclosure, I started at Coldwell Banker, and I believe it was like somewhere in the middle of the year. I don't know if it was July or September or whatever, but I started there and I ended up selling 6 homes and was rookie of the year or something in 2003 at Coldwell Banker. And I was like, I made 33 grand. I mean, how am I rookie of the year? I made 33 grand. And I'm like, I have to leave. Right. And so I was on a 65-35 split. I was on the 65 bad side. So I had a 35% split plus a 6% franchise fee. I didn't know any better. I wore a suit and a tie that I've never wore to the interview at Coldwell Banker, not knowing any better. And so I got the job and I was totally excited about that. And I didn't know what splits were. So whatever, they were the number 1 office in town. I said yes. And it was brand new. So I don't blame them. But all of a sudden, after 6 transactions, I'd made $33,000, 100 and I think 100 plus thousand in GCI. I made 33 grand. And I'm like, so I'm on a 33% split. I have to leave, right? I have to go somewhere else. And I interviewed with Remax and they were 100% split, but they had like a $1,500 desk fee. And I go, I mean, just on the math I just already did, I would be way, way ahead. So I joined Remax and I joined in January. So it was my first full calendar year that I was in Remax. And I hit the Platinum Club, which is 250 GCI in my very first full year of real estate. So really, probably 16, 17 months I'd been in the business at this point, but I count it as being my first full year of real estate.
So just a follow-up question on that, Randy. So how'd you do that, man, the first year? That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, again, I didn't know any better. So I'm just working like I work. And in construction, I'm at the job at 6 and I go home at 6. So I just did the same thing in real estate. I was in the office at 6:30 before an hour and a half before the first person, which I learned it had some benefits. Obviously the phones still ring at 6 a.m. Nobody's there to answer them. So that worked, but I just made a habit, a discipline every single day. And I did this very early on without coaching. I just was, back in the day, it was even hard to Google things, right? We're talking 2003, not that long ago, it's seemingly, but it was a different world. But we did have internet. Trust me, everything was, we were in that realm. But, for me, it was, I'd look on the MLS every single morning at 7 a.m. I had a routine. I'd come in the office by 7, look in the MLS for about 35 minutes, really understand what was going on in that 35 minutes. And then I'd start immediately contacting all my people that had specific needs that were brand new on the market. This was all prior to 8 a.m. So I spent about an hour doing that, just making sure, I'm sending new listings, new properties, just staying engaged in that activity. At 9 o'clock sharp, that I would just turn off everything and I would make calls. And I did that for all of my career. From 9 to 11 was prospecting time. I still do it to this day, by the way. I'm just prospecting for different things. And that really helped me build that business. Honestly, it seemed fairly easy. It didn't seem difficult because I was just on the phones making things happen and didn't know any better, but I knew nobody. So I joined the Exchange Club, became the president. I joined the Rotary. I joined the Country Club. I joined, the Dishwashers of America if they had it. I got myself involved in the community, which led to me being the speaker for the Peace Officer of the Year Awards for 11 branches. We started selling all the leaders of the Highway Patrol and the police department's homes, started offering veteran discounts and first responder discounts before it was a cool thing. It's really become cool, which I'm happy to see veterans and first responders since 9/11 and stuff's really taken precedence. I love that. But back maybe before it was really cool, we were doing that and it's paid off. And then I was at Remax for a few years there. I was going to take over for Al Naccioni that's still in business. He's been in business 45 years, probably now in Reading. Great guy. Him and Pat were amazing. They taught me probably everything I know. Under that brokerage, I also had them as partners, right? And not partners in the sense, but as brokers, they were very hands-on, very disciplined, whiteboards everywhere. And I idolized them and that. And so I emulated, I copied that. And so I'm a copycat. From early days, I've been a copycat. And so what that led to was habits of a top producer. He was a $50 million producer. And so I just said, hey, he took 18 listings this month. I suck, right? I only took 5 listings. Well, other people in the industry were going, who the hell is this Randy Byrd guy? He's got 5 listings. He's brand new. I'm looking at this guy that brought in 18 thinking that I'm slacking. And so really, I think it's just who you hang around with, who you emulate and what your story is that you're telling yourself.
Yeah. Wow. It's exactly true. One of the things I admire about you is not just your work ethic. Oh, and by the way, you can't shortchange or shortcut success. You worked, man. You were in early. You worked all day. Kind of reminds me yesterday, Chase, I call him. I go, what are you doing? He goes, man, I'm holding an open house all day. He goes, I need to get more in the pipeline, and he had a stellar first year, but what you're really good at too is tech. I always kind of felt like you were way in front of the field, like in terms of what was going on with technology in our industry. And talk about copying. The first couple of years that you coached me, I was copying your stuff left and right. You know that. In fact, Randy actually gave me his website template and I copied that too. So it's like,
You didn't copy it. You made it nicer, which again, that's part of this. That's part of connecting with other people, right? Jeff, and again, I love you like a brother and you're a good human being. I've always admired you on every level. And I know we have mutual admiration that way, but you took my site and upgraded it to what you saw visionary wise from, if I'm at this place right here, it may look great to everybody, but when you come in and replicate it exactly, you have the ability to see things that I don't see. And that's where people are missing. By sharing everything you have the benefit to upgrade and top grade what you're already doing through the mastermind of other people. And so, as soon as you did your website and you replicated it and then you made some edits, I'm like, man, I'm copying that. So I copy you and then I have a new level and then you copy me and you have a new level and it goes back and forth. And I think that's what's missing in our business. Honestly, we have a lot of silos. We have a lot of companies that wrap their arms around silos in the real estate space. and eXp Realty specifically is this: I'm going to share everything with you. And I believe it's going to be cool enough that you'll eventually want to partner with me in some way, right? That's the philosophy, instead of a closed arm philosophy of this is our silo, this is our stuff. This is struggling with this right now. They're making, and I'm not bashing other companies. And I think there's a lot of beautiful things about Compass, but specifically in the news today, April 18th, is the CCP, the Clear Cooperation Policy. And this is a real estate topic, right? That means the consumer is getting all the information, and Compass has private exclusives where they're wrapping their arms around it saying, these are ours. And that's okay as a private, it's called a pocket listing. We got it in your back pocket. It's not in the world. It's not on the MLS, but they're treating it a little differently, and they're creating a silo around their company. And the silo's benefit is double ending deals. If you have the listing and you don't put it out to the world so nobody can see it, and you market it to only your people, you have the opportunity to get both sides of that, either internally in the office or personally with you doing both sides, buyer and seller. But you're creating silos when you do that. And so this particular company, eXp, is an open market type philosophy. We're sharing everything with everybody. Matter of fact, we put out a industry standard form for dealing with this specific topic. And we wrote it so every company can just copy it. Every company can literally copy it. It's not stealing if you're putting it out there for the good of business, right? The good of economy. So we put it out there so every company can use it, which becomes a standardization of the industry. And we're leading the way with that. And if they edit it, make it a little better, like my website scenario, awesome. We'll edit and make it a little better as we go as well. So there's a big thing going on in the space right now. Yesterday, and again, I'm kind of on a rabbit trail, but it's our podcast, right? I can.
That's right.
Yesterday, up in Seattle, the Northwest MLS, one of the biggest up there in Washington, removed Compass from the MLS. That is such a huge thing. The company, Compass, not an agent for making a mistake. They removed Compass from the MLS. Zillow this week said that if they don't change their ways of how they report things, they're going to never be able to put that listing on Zillow. It's going to be banned from Zillow for life of the company. Redfin came out the next day, said us too. So there's some major changes going on in the real estate space. The reason I went on that tangent, it gets back to silos. These companies are trying to do silos for personal benefit. It's not better for the consumer. If it's not better for the consumer, why would we have it involved in our procedure policy and our SOP, standard operating procedure? I think it's wrong. I think the consumer's got to prevail. That's what all these lawsuits were about, is hiding things from the consumer. So I think you look at this date and time of this podcast, April 17th, 2025, we're live. I think in the future, we're going to look back on this and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's going to be DOJ. There's going to be regulation from a government perspective, from the National Association of Realtors perspective, from local and national MLSs. This is a big time in our future. And I just think that the next version of these class action lawsuits are in the making if we don't really make the consumer first. So I'm off my soapbox.
No, that's, I hear what you're saying. If it really comes down to a high clash of ideas and a low clash of egos, and that should be in any industry, right? We should be able to have these amazing debates, about these things, because it really is all about the consumer. You have to, and what's good for the consumer is usually good for the entire industry. And you either come from scarcity or you come from abundance. You're either holding things in, and you're trying to keep that pie the same size as it always has been, or you can try to make the pie bigger, right? Why not try to make everybody bigger and better? And when you do that, I think people are attracted to that. Wouldn't you agree?
1,000%. I had a Compass conversation, a buddy I really respect. I coached him like I did you for a couple of years. I coached him for a few years, and he wasn't at Compass at the time. He went to Compass. We're good friends, and I'm not going to name any names or any references. But I said, what's your take on this? And he goes, this Compass is doing the wrong thing because they're not looking out for the consumer first. They're looking at themselves first and the consumer second, and making up stories why it doesn't harm the consumer. When you come from it backwards like that, it is before the horse. I think that the whole industry, the reason that there's so much pressure and that we're looked at as used car salesmen, I think it's used car salesman and real estate broker, right? I think the reason that happens publicly is because of this lack of transparency, because of this lack of belief. And he took and I asked him to take the posture of Compass and say, what tell me the benefits. Tell me where this benefits maybe the consumer. And he goes, well, they get private exclusives. They don't have days on the market, so they can market. And this is really not a Compass bashing session. I have a lot of respect. Just want to throw that in there again. But he said they get, the days on market don't count. So we could test things out for a month or two. We could test things out. And I go, you could privately market them for a month or two and see if you could sell them without the MLS in the world. But he goes, no. And so we're having this kind of debate. And I said, okay, one question. I said, if you were selling your mother's house or your personal residence, and it was the most important transaction in your life, would you hold it or want it held in your back pocket, or would you want it exposed to the world? And he just goes, that's unfair, Randy. I see what you're doing here. And I said, no, I'm making this emotional because that's what this is. It's the biggest emotional and financial transaction ever. So if you wouldn't do it to your own family, why is it good for your seller? And he goes, that's a great point. And so I said, I'm just going to leave it there because, listen, we have to look at the consumer as our fiduciary responsibility is to preserve and protect them. And when you have a seller, you have a primary fiduciary responsibility to the seller. If a buyer comes along, you have to tell them, hey, I have a primary responsibility here. You're a secondary responsibility through fiduciary. And so I think that's where this is going to lie. I think we have to look at the consumer first and find out how this serves the consumer's interest first. And I believe EXP will prevail on this. And I personally believe that this is going to come full circle and there's going to be nasty lawsuits and a lot of aggression. And at the end, I think it's going to change to be where the consumer's first.
Yeah, appreciate that, Randy. So let's talk about go ahead, Chase.
Is that kind of similar to, just so that I understand fully, they were basically privately marketing those to just Compass agents? So is that similar to kind of like an EXP exclusives as a coming soon, basically getting blasted out to EXP agents, or is that something different? Obviously, that's only first time, but
that's a great question. So we have ZenList, which is an exclusive area, right, within EXP, and it's been kind of compared to Compass, but Compass is treating it, I'll talk both ways. Compass is treating it as a marketing strategy. They're actually promoting it as it won't go to the MLSs. Listen, that's made for somebody that is a DEA agent or a sheriff or a public figure or a witness protection where you don't want your address and your house promoted to the public. That's what that pocket listing or that exclusive private's made for, right? Or maybe it's a house that you don't want the contents being seen because there's tenants, whatever it is. But they're treating it more like a marketing strategy where, anyway, that's their strategy. Ours promotes to everything. As soon as we put it in there, it has to be coming soon, which is a classification. Now, all MLSs in the whole nation are different. 400 MLSs all have different rules. But as an average, coming soon has to be put active within 24 hours. Some are 30 days, but you can't promote it anywhere, right? So that's the difference, is when it's promoted publicly, even on your Facebook page, that is still putting it out to the world without them being allowed to use it because they're not in your Facebook page or they're your circle, right? And if you think about it, if you look at the commercial real estate industry, it's still that way. There's 3 or 4 big boys in commercial. And unless you're in those companies, you can't get access to those listings unless they syndicate to LoopNet and the other things. So that's what this is about, is fair trade. Because I saw a report today, 5 companies in the United States control like 60% of the agents and the inventory in the whole country. Now, what about if those 5, EXP is one of them, Compass is another, Berkshire Hathaway, Realogy brands, which is Coldwell Banker and all those. What if they all said, okay, we're going to make our own private exclusive and leave NAR, leave the MLSs completely? That would disrupt and bankrupt the whole industry because you have mom and pop brokerages, some of them with 1,000 agents, but they're not those companies. They won't have access to any of the listings. And so that's the problem, is we've got to keep it fair and equitable for this. So we talked about a couple of things there, but the end of the day, it's what's best for the consumer is going to preserve the integrity of our business here in real estate.
Yep. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about market trends up in Oregon. You live up in Oregon, and I believe you're coming down to Arizona soon, which would be killer because we'll see each other more. What do you?
Baby.
Yeah, baby, I love it. So what do you see in Oregon? What's going on there? What are you seeing across the United States? And in addition to that, what's the forecast in your mind look like for agents over the next year? What do you see on the horizon? Because we've got 50 years plus of cumulative experience on this call right here. So what do you see?
Yeah. So geographically, Oregon is doing well, pretty much like the rest of the West Coast. I just did a market review for April, just 5 minutes before this podcast. Sales are up about 3.8% here. Average sales price is up a couple percent. So we're seeing all these trends going up and the time on market's coming down. It went down about 5.8%. So these things are all showing that a market is it's a brisk and moving market. Inventory is increasing, so it's slowing it down a little bit. We had inventory issues through the whole United States over the last 12 months. We're starting to see inventory come on both from, and this is not a political presidential thing, but about the time of the end of January, when the election turned over and Trump took office, we saw the real estate market kind of take off. I think it was from economic, vitality or the belief of it. And so we saw the market pick up pretty significantly. Most agents are reporting a pickup in the market. Now we're seeing the spring season happening. So overall, rates are holding steady. They're in that 6.5. And honestly, the buyers are on the fence still. The sellers are on the fence still. We still have this kind of middle ground market. There's pockets that they're getting multiple offers. There's pockets that are going backwards. I just reported Florida has either 4 or 5 of the top 5 spots for depreciating value in the nation. And that's because Florida was so hot the last couple of years, the appreciated value was going through the roof, 5 and double-digit percentages per year. And so when you have that, you create instability. It's what goes up must come down. And so we're seeing that now. We're seeing Florida start seeing some of this losing 5 and 6 and 7% value in 1 year because it moved fast. And it's retracting a little bit. Arizona's experiencing some of the same things in certain areas. So as we move through this year, I think we've got instability. We've got instability now with tariffs. We've got instability in the real estate market. We've got low inventory pressured by high prices and high level of entry point into housing. Average sales price nationally, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's been moving up, and it's quite frankly, it's out of the reach for the first-time home buyer. It's just, what used to be a $1,500 to $1,800 a month entry point is now $3,000 a month. And so the rental market's being pressured by that, right, Jeff? So if you have people that can't enter the housing market, they stay in or they have to enter into the rental market. Well, that market's red hot now. No vacancies. Almost nationally, we're seeing this rental market that's very, very brisk. You have institutional buyers buying institutional level of houses, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 houses at a time. Single family residential houses bought portfolio wise from, funds, hedge funds, and they're putting tenants into those houses. So that's removing part of the buyer pool, and it's going to the transition to the tenant pool. I think that continues until we either create legislation or the rates come down to where we can see some relief in the housing market. So, that's kind of where my head's at right now as we watch what's happening in the housing market. I think we will see pressure on rates. I already see President Trump talking about Powell and, saying they're kind of playing a little tug and war here. I think that tug and war will come into 3 or 4 rate reductions this year. Mathematically, if they all stay at 0.25, which is called 25 basis points, a quarter of a point, that'll bring us down 1 full percentage. That'll get us into the 5.5% range. I think the world changes if we see that. The real estate world is going to have the next gold rush, right? So we've had 2 or 3 years of unsettled through 2020 COVID. We had this big weird thing that happened with COVID. And then lo and behold, right, just a couple months into COVID, market took off and it continued all the way through the end of 2021. Record sales, record years, all the things, all the trophies, the whole thing. 22, 23, 24 were all kind of a different flatlining market. And we've been somewhat in a slow residential market. Last year, 2024, 50%, don't quote me, but it's like 49.2, but 50% of every agent did 0 transactions. In Chicago, 70% of every agent did no transactions, 70% of the agents. And so all of a sudden, you've got housing markets that are off 50%. We're seeing 1992 and 1995 sales levels of transactions in 2025, 30 years later. And so this retraction is what's contributing to all this. So we have multiple pieces that are moving that we've got to take the snow globe and shake it and try and see where this settles out, right? And so if you see my hands, even though it's a podcast, I'm shaking my head like a watermelon because that's pretty much what's going on in the real estate space right now. I remain very optimistic, very, very optimistic, but there's still a lot of things shaking out.
Yeah. We got lower sales volume. We've got bad affordability right now. I mean, you're exactly right. It is difficult especially for a first-time home buyer. We had a lot of agents hang it up last year. And honestly, I think there's going to be a lot more this year. So how does an agent win, Randy? How do they win in 2025?
Am I allowed to cuss on your show? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to cuss. Jeff knows me. I'm a contractor by heart. I throw out a little dirty word now and again, even though I'm a big believer and I'm doing my best. But I'm half hood, half holy, as they say, right? And I'm just working at being 51% holy. That's all I want. Here's the deal. I'm going to just be straight. I'm a real estate coach. I interview agents all the time. I coach agents. I've coached over 10,000 hours, probably closer to 20,000 hours now of one-on-one coaching with clients. And I just know the avatar that wins, and I know the avatar that doesn't. And I could tell very, very quickly in the business relationship. So 2 things. Number 1, I say, show me your calendar and I'll show you your business. If you show me your calendar, I'll tell you how much money you make. It's that good, right? I could pinpoint it that much in real estate specifically. But what I see is just complacency, lazy, undisciplined, herding cats in a snowstorm, rainstorm is what the real estate space looks like. And that's probably above 80% for sure, but it could be in the 90% range, right? It's like a couple percent of agents do 90% of the business in the nation. It's this 90-10 rule, right? 10% of the agents do 90% of the business. It's a big number. It's not 80-20 anymore. And it's getting bigger through the teams and the way the market's moving. But what I see is success leaves clues. When I interview an agent that's doing, say, 3 to 6 deals a year and they want to get to 25 and they're hiring Coach Byrd to quadruple their business, the very first thing that's missing is agent production on purpose. So purposeful prospecting calls, looking for new business. They get into a reactionary mode, waiting for this phone to ring and focused on outgoing things that are supposedly going to bring business to you, lead generation through Zillow and all the things, instead of focusing on their database and then making sure that's the best thing that they do every day and prospecting for new people to add to the database. So it's really, if you just look at it, I just want to see how big your database is. And then what do we need to do daily to add activity to that database and nurture that database like your life depends on it. And that should be done in a couple hours a day, preferably in the morning before your day gets out of control. It does, right? Because you're basically a fireman in this industry. And if you don't think you're a fireman, wait till you have $1 million listing at the closing table and find out that there's some report missing somewhere. You will become a fireman at that moment. Right? So what I see, Jeff, to be very clear to the people listening that may help an agent if they listen to this is, number 1, get masterful about your schedule. Make sure your schedule has your big rocks in it. Big rocks, the lead generation levers in your business, prospecting, servicing buyers, servicing sellers. That's all that matters in the beginning part of your day. The back part of your day, so from say 9 to 11 or 9 to noon, and then go to lunch. And then after that, it's servicing all the things you created during the morning. Ideally, listing appointments, buyer consultations, buyer servicing, seller servicing. If you follow that 5 days a week, in 3 years, you'll have a vibrant business that will last for the rest of your career, and you'll just continue to grow and build on it. If you decide to be an entrepreneur and an independent contractor like you are, and I see you on the bike trail at 10 a.m. and I see you Thursday taking the day off, I'm going to crush you, right? I'm just going to outrun you on the treadmill and you have no chance of catching me. I don't care how creative you are. And so it's just a work ethic thing that's missing in our industry. And it's because our industry was made for independent entrepreneurs. And so it's a double-edged sword and it's not going to change. Let's be honest.
That, Rand, you said a lot of good things there. And earlier, I wanted to comment when you were talking about taking the same work ethic and schedule from the construction and bringing it into the real estate, right? And I can kind of relate to that because when I was working in construction, we were working 12 or 14-hour days. And when I was talking to a lot of people in the real estate industry, they're saying, oh, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours. And I'm thinking, well, I'm already working 14 hours a day for somebody else. I mean, do you work more hours than that? And so when you said that, it really resonated with me because I've tried to do the same thing and just keep that those same hours. You put whatever, working for somebody else, now you're putting it to yourself. But with regard to, people not being structured and not making the phone calls and doing these lead generating activities that they need to do, what do you think the reason, I mean, out of all the people that you have coached and you've talked to a lot of people, I mean, is it fear of rejection? Is it just laziness? They've never, what do you think it is? Is it any one thing?
I think there's one thing that points to it. I think that procrastination comes from insecurity, right? So either fear of calling, fear of rejection, that leads to procrastination. All these things lead to procrastination. Listen, nobody loves to pick up the phone and be rejected. I mean, there's nobody that loves to ask a girl to dance and be rejected. And I hopefully we've all experienced that, because if we haven't asked big enough questions, right?
That's right.
But imagine, not being good at that already, maybe being told you're not good enough your whole life. I mean, there's a lot of things I unravel in coaching. And as a coach, I'm a real estate business coach, a leadership coach. I call myself an executive coach, but I coach everything from single agents to big teams I coach like the number one guy in Canada's 1,000 transactions a year. I did coach him. So I've had it on both levels, right? To answer your question specifically, it's discipline. It's discipline to follow a calendar, discipline to do the things you don't want to do when it's time to do them, discipline to follow your goals, your path, your objectives, and ultimately your vision. If you don't have a business plan, you're just rowing in circles, right? When you look at sailing ships and stuff, their course looks like this. You just have to know when you're off course to get back on course. You could do that with coaching. You could do that with a lot of different things, but it's all about measuring what you want to accomplish, but it starts with the discipline of doing the daily activity. And I do believe call reluctance would be at the top of my list, but it's probably fear of rejection is the number one reason that people won't get on the phone. And as soon as you can flip that script, the thing that I do with my coaching clients, and Jeff probably could attest to this, but I say, let's flip the script. You think you're calling bugging somebody. You think you're calling soliciting somebody. You think you're calling, doing a sales call. I think I'm calling, helping them build equity. I think I'm calling to change their life. I think I'm calling to help them with their financial future. I think I'm going to get the best deal for them. I think I'm the best agent. If they pick another agent, they made a mistake because I didn't sell myself hard enough to let them know that I'm going to do the best job for them. I believe that in my heart. And so when you own that, when you believe it in your heart, you get out of the sales breath, the commission breath part of the business, and you get to where you're really serving people. And when you start serving people, whether you're serving people for business and money or you're serving people for the Lord, whatever you put your wagon to and you believe in it, then you're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, that's great, right? Just flipping the script a little bit in your mind to show that you're coming at it with value instead of continually stressing about, oh man, do I just sound like a salesman, right? Because nobody wants to do that. So that's good.
Nobody wants to do that. We know how it feels to be sold, right? But that's where my heart's at. And I know it doesn't matter what I say, some people are going to be a no, right? It's a numbers game in that regard, but I'm going to love on them the same. I'm going to support them the same. I'm going to give them the same amount of things that I'm willing to give somebody that's paying me for free, because I'm moving the free line. I am willing to give away the world if they allow me to, but I'm only looking for the ones that allow me to.
So talking just a little bit about struggles, Randy, I understand that you've obviously experienced a lot of struggle in your life, losing the loss of loved ones and whatnot. Can you share a little bit about that and kind of just talk through how that has formed you as an individual and how you get through that every day and how you use that?
Yeah, thank you. So just when you just said it, my heart skipped a beat and I got a hot flash and I'm nervous, right? Just like that. And so that's reality. I'm here on a podcast. I'm fired up. I'm breathing fire and giving advice and stuff. But when you ask that question, it brings me back to the human side of things. One of my close friends killed himself, committed suicide, and he was my business idol. So imagine somebody you look up to, like Jeff looks up to me and I look up to him. But imagine somebody you really, really admired and looked up to and wanted to be like killed himself. You're like, what judge am I looking at? Right. And that happened with a buddy of mine, Jim Gelati in Santa Rosa. He owned the largest construction company in California and seemingly on top of the world financially and every other category. And he lost hope, is what I believe. When you lose hope, what do you have to live for? And so he lost hope and he lost faith and he lost belief and he took his own life in the parking lot of a church and out of town. He drove out of town a little bit, and that rattled me, but it didn't change my life. It rattled me. I was like, man, I'm sad, right? I just felt sad. But then a couple of years later, my only younger brother, and my mom died when I was 7. So my brother and I pretty much raised each other. My dad was working. He was a cop in East LA and Compton. And my little brother killed himself. And I remember the moment. I remember the second. I remember everything, right? I was at a golf tournament and I came home to a chaplain's pickup truck in my driveway, white Ford F-250, long bed, big red stripe on it with the reflective coating, big circle on the door, Sheriff Chaplain. And the guy was a 42-year-old white cop outfit, but he was a chaplain. He had a cross on, but he looked like a police officer. And I just remember as soon as I saw him in the driveway, I knew what happened. Because the day before, my brother called my dad when we were together and he said, hey, I'm having problems. And he goes, I'm thinking really stupid stuff right now. My dad said, hey man, I'm with Randy. I was at my storage unit asking him to help me move something. It was nothing important. And my dad still has great grief over this every day. But he goes, hey, let me call you back. And he hung up on my brother. And then he called us from a Google Voice because we didn't know his phone had been shut off, so we couldn't get back to him. And we were troubled by this that night. We went to bed troubled by it. We couldn't reach him. We tried multiple ways. So the next day when I saw the chaplain, it's just my heart sunk. I knew exactly what it was. And then my fears had been confirmed when he said that, are you the brother of Ronald Byrd? And so I still can't talk about that story much. It still will bring me to tears. And, I've come to terms with it. But again, that one will stay with me for my life. And then unfortunately, just a few years later, my ex-wife, 23 years we were married. I was 46 at the time, 47 at the time. So half of my life I spent with Melody Byrd, and she took her own life. And it's my boys' mom. And, that one, again, I think it was the combination of all these things. I didn't believe there was a Jesus on the planet that would do that to me. I didn't believe in God. I took that away from myself and I just started blaming people and I started understanding. I fell into depression and it was a dark, dark time in my life. And I got into coaching about that period, about 12 years ago now, because I knew I needed a lifeline. I said, I need a coach. I need somebody to help me because I can't figure this out on my own. I've always been that guy. Right? I've always been that guy. You just tell me no. Dare you to tell me no. And I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter what it is, right? I've always been prideful about having that tenacity about me. I think the military probably beat that into me or allowed me to experience that. But, I was lost. I felt depression for the first time in my life. It triggered other PTSD that I'd suppressed a little bit from the military, just things that happen with death in the Coast Guard. And there's been many times that's been at my foot, but 19, you don't really internalize it the way I did. But when these things stacked, all of a sudden I was choked by it. I was, in a place where I didn't know where to turn. And, it's an ongoing struggle. I still struggle on a regular basis with happiness, with what true happiness that I felt prior to all this stuff, because it feels sometimes like I'm faking it and happiness along the way. But the reality is, through getting into coaching, I hired a coach, Tom Ferry, and then very quickly they said, "Hey, you should be a coach. You've got a fire in your belly and some experience that I think would be valuable." And I'm like, dude, I need coaching. I don't want to be a coach. And I remember Tom saying, being a coach is the greatest way to heal. I said, wow, I didn't think of it that way, but I'm paying somebody to tell me what I should do. And I said, okay, I'll be a coach. And I started coaching, and it was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, because when you're a teacher, you will learn, right? You become the student through the teacher's eyes. And through coaching, I did exactly that. And I realized that I really had both a gift for coaching and I had a gift for understanding what people were going through. And then I leaned on the things that I used to dig myself out of this hole. The first thing you do when you hit rock bottom is stop effing digging. And so I stopped digging. I started pouring in. I literally probably hadn't picked up a book, much less read one, since high school when I was forced to, when this all happened. And I was in my late 40s. And I just turned 60. So this is about 12, 13 years ago, roughly. September 29th is the day my brother took his life. I don't remember the year right now, but I believe it was about 12 years, maybe 10 years ago. But what happened is I started self-help books and I started reading. I started getting help. I started asking coaches what I should be doing. And then my business took off. But I was still, as a human, I was still hollow and shallow and didn't understand how to heal that part of it. And then, that showed up in relationships. Those show up in all the things. So I just kept pouring into that. Now I consume books like a wild man. I've probably read 20 books in the last 36 months to 48 months. And sometimes I'll read a book a month. Sometimes I'll read 5 to 6, 7 books at a time and complete those through the year. But now I'm completely just drawn to self-improvement, self-help, ideas of bigger things. And now I'm on a different mission. I got baptized January last year in Maui, Hawaii with Brent Gove and Kathy Gove. And it's such a beautiful story. I'm new in the journey, right? So hopefully it's okay if I share this story, Jeff, and I think you've heard it.
Please do.
So I was drawn back to Jesus, and through Brent and Kathy Gove, which are huge Jesus lovers. He's the pillar of the community. If you look at it from an outside perspective of what a good Christian looks like, in my opinion. And so I was looking at him. I'm like, this is the guy. This is who I want to be when I grow up. This is the guy I look up to now. And Brent has become one of my best friends on the planet, but they're very, very much in their faith, and everything in the world revolves around faith. And they give millions of dollars a year away and nobody knows. I've witnessed him giving people, total strangers, money and going, nope, you don't need to know my name. This is a gift. This is me touching you. And they give money when they didn't have money to give. But now he's got, a lot of money to give away. But so I was drawn back to my faith, and I wanted to get baptized and wanted to do it in beautiful Maui. So we did it. And I wanted to do it privately with them. And so when he goes, do you mind if we invite a few people to the beach? I was like, my inside said no. And then I could feel that spiritual voice saying, yes, it's okay. Just, let more people come. And then all of a sudden I started feeling this power of like, it's going to be okay. I have more people supporting me in this. And then he said, hey, we're going to do a little ceremony down on the beach for Randy, and he's going to get baptized. Anybody want to come down? We'll have a morning church session on the beach. Well, like 100 people showed up on the beach, and now I'm the center of attention. I didn't like it at all because I was already nervous about taking that step. It's a big step. Got baptized when I was little, but I was forced. I think they almost just drowned me because I didn't want to do it. So this was me choosing to do it, choosing to give my life to Christ, choosing to make the next story of Randy Byrd the one that I'm proud of, the one that I want to lean into and be the man that I'm capable of being. And so I went through with it. It was a great morning. Lo and behold, after I got baptized, I come out and there's a line on the beach of people wanting to get baptized. And I don't know the exact numbers, but it was like 13 or 17 people got baptized that day. A bunch of other people heard about it. And then the next morning we repeated the whole thing and did it again, including my son, Cody Byrd, our daughter, Jenna, in Arizona. And I just couldn't ask for a more beautiful, perfect day on the planet. Wells were breaching right out past us. It was just like God was there. Right. And so to me, that's been a big change in my belief system. It's my rock. He's my co-pilot, or I'm his co-pilot. And I'm leaning into people like Jeff as a pastor and minister. And I'm leaning into more of that. I could see being a pastor in my future. Once I start dropping the bad words, I'll feel better. The reality is I've really embraced who I am now. And I'm proud of who I am. And it's not for everybody. But we have to be our own version of our best self. And if we focus on what everybody else likes, that's not going to work. Like I had a big tattoo on my arm, but I finished my arm sleeve because I wanted it. I don't care if anybody ever likes it. I didn't do it for anybody else. And people that do some of these things understand that, right? It's not a rebellion. It's like, I'm doing this for me, and I don't really care about what somebody else thinks. When we step into that place and we're right with the Lord and we're right with our actions and we're living the life that we say that we're going to live, both in quiet and in public, it's a beautiful place. And that's just where I'm at on this journey. And so, I'm married to a beautiful woman, Kirsty. We're traveling. We're blessed. We're blessed and favored. We get to travel the country with these organizations and helping inspire people and real estate agents along the way. I have a vibrant coaching business that I love very much. I could retire, but what's that look like, right? I'm having a blast. And if you make your business fun, you'll never work a day in your life.
Randy, you've touched so many people, and you've definitely helped me in my life. And I don't know if you remember one of our coaching sessions, but we were coaching for like 6 months, and I was honestly holding back and my true self, and I was kind of protecting myself, right? And I had a little bit of ego, and I thought I knew how to do things, but there came a point, and I think this point comes in everybody's life at some point, right? Where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I remember that day, I literally practically sobbed on the phone. I just started crying, and, it was kind of a cleansing cry. And I felt like I was letting it all go. And at that point, I believe that's when I made my turning point, but it took many months to realize that if I don't get serious about being truly coachable, I'm just going to keep on doing what I've been doing. And Randy and I are both pretty good at this. We like to challenge people out of love, of course. And he said, do you feel like a failing or a fading winner? There's some words that you'll always remember. And he said that. He said, do you feel like a fading winner? And I did. And I felt that way. And it hit me to the core. But it was a gift that he gave me, because I had to go down into that valley in order to come out the other side, And so I just want to thank you, because I'm not the only person in your life that you've changed. And I've seen your transformation over the last few years, your faith, your beautiful relationship with Kirsty. It's just, you've made a difference, Randy. It's amazing. I really thank you for that.
I appreciate that, man. I really appreciate you, Jeff. And you've been a gift in my life as well. I remember that day. Because you were at a crossroads, and, but you're the most coachable that I've probably ever coached with. Definitely in the top 2 or 3 of coachability. Like you just said, I need to lean into this coaching to be coachable, right? That is a beautiful thing in the coaching space. Yeah. I'll tell you, it's been an incredible journey. I'm better for knowing you. I mean, that's what this is all about, is how many lives can you impact and touch? And I want my relationships in business to be my relationships in my life and friendship, right? Because we're business partners. We're not financially connected, but we're business partners in a couple different areas. But you're also my close friend. Like, when we come to town, I want to stay with you. We want to hang out. We want to barbecue, right? That's going to happen. And so that's just really what I'm focused on in my life. And if you help enough people get what they want, then you get all the things that you want. And that's just a big component for me. It really is.
Chase, wasn't Randy great today? This has been fantastic.
Yeah, amazing. I really appreciate you sharing all of that. And, I've watched a lot of your coaching videos that Jeff has shared with me. So I've gotten a lot of great things from you, Randy. And so I just want to say I appreciate it, man. It's been great.
And Randy, how can people get a hold of you, my friend?
I appreciate that. I was just going to say, and I'll give you my contact info in a minute, but surround yourself with people you want to be like, right? I want to give you 2 little takeaways. Number 1 is do an inventory of your life, of your friend's life, right? Pick your 5 friends you hang around the most and say, are these the friends that emulate the version, my future self of me, my version of my future self? And if they don't, I'm going to really challenge you, because this is difficult. They are holding you back from your next level of success and dreams. You can have different levels of friends, but the ones you spend the most time with, you will become like and or are like. So I'm not saying to be superficial. I'm saying that take inventory. Like, I've got people I love very much on this planet, but their excessive use of alcohol does not play into my version of my future self. I've had to distance myself from them. They may listen to this. That's tough to say, but that's not their problem. That's my choice, right? That's where I need to live. So I would say take inventory of those 5 friends and focus on a mastermind going forward of people that you want to be like, emulate. You want to step into those shoes and just focus your attention on that. When you do that, you get right with yourself. There is no call reluctance. There is no can't wait to retire because I hate what I'm doing. You will live a life worth living. That's what I'm focused on. I want to live a life worth living. I'm constantly editing that. I'm constantly auditing it. And so the best way to do that, in my opinion, is through events. Go to events. Like I have a big event coming up in Salem, Oregon. Fly up here. You could fly to Portland for nothing. And the event's $97 and you'll get 20 speakers with just amazing content for motivation and business and all these things. We got Amy Somerville, the CEO of Success Magazine, is one of the speakers, keynote speakers. Tanya Meme was host of Sell This House on A&E for years and years and years. I think we're going to have another movie star coming up that I'm talking with. We've just got a bunch of talent. Get in local events where you can meet other people and expand your mind a little bit. If you want to get with me, the best way is just Coach Randy Byrd. YouTube, Instagram, Coach Randy Byrd, all the things. Our YouTube, we post everything for free. Everything I've ever done there's for free. It's amazing how many people call me and say, I wish you'd share more, and it's all on YouTube, right? So I want you to see it. I want you to consume it. It's there for that reason. Go to my YouTube channels, go to my Instagram, go to my Facebook. My Facebook friends is maxed out, but I have unlimited in my coaching Facebook that's meant to be friends, meant to be business and friend partners. So that's how you get a hold of me. You can DM me, you can do anything you like, but, listen, reach out. If you want coaching, obviously I'm open to coach, and Jeff's a great coach as well. I'm open for that. But the reality is I want to help you. If you're listening, if you took the time to get to the end of this and you spent 60 minutes with us, I want to help you. I will give you a free coaching assessment for free. If you've stayed this long and listened, just DM me, say you listened to the show. I will do that, right? Regardless if we work together in the future, I could accomplish a lot in a 15-minute assessment call and give you some direction and help you along. And it'd be my pleasure.
Wow, this has been great. So today we learned so much. And if you're a listener, thank you. We've had such growth on this YouTube podcast. It's crazy. We just want you to know, if you need anything in Phoenix, guys, we're here for you. I'm a hustler. Chase is a hustler. I've sold over 1,000 houses in my career. And right now we have grit, and we will not just get by in this market, but we will be coming out of this thing when the dust settles even stronger. So, we're working long hours right now, but we love what we do and we want to support you. So just please look us up, see how we can help you. Randy, what a pleasure, man. I love you, brother. And you brought the heat today. And I can't wait to see you, I think, next week soon. So thanks again, Randy.
Thanks for all you do. Thanks for having me. And I mean, it means a lot. And, hopefully this moves somebody to make a choice and just make a little tiny navigational turn, right? Just like that ship, you got to go straight to get there. You have to make that navigational little adjustment, adjust yourselves, link up with us, and let's get on track with really what the world has to offer. Appreciate you.
Let's go. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.